for today from our own CS Arvind Godana ji, coordinator for today's session CA Nisha Patel. Young members, welcome to this skills development series, second day with the subject as the drafting skills. The first session, we had a wonderful start whereby you all have learned how to draft business emails. So let's start the first session. Continuing our rich tradition, let's begin the session with ICI motto. I request everyone to place your right hand on your heart for ICI motto.
Yaesha supteshu jagrati Yaesha supteshu jagrati Kamam 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 Purusho nirmimanaha Tadeva shukram Tadeva brahma Tadeva mritamujjate Tasmin lokaha shataha Sarve tadunatyati kaschan Etadvaita
Welcome back. In the absence of our chairman, C. Harit Dhariwal, I take the privilege to update you about the forthcoming events at Ahmedabad branch. Firstly, the skill development series, drafting skills, will be completed in July. August month, we have digital skills. September, the whole September, we have planned all the sessions of the personal development skills. And October, we are going to have the communication skills. So hopefully we expect that with the physical world being started, we can have communication and the personal development physically at Ahmedabad branch with so much activities. So that's how the skill development series are planned. Further, next week, we are going to have, Monday, we are going to have the session on income tax, the newly inserted sections in income tax 45 subsection 4 and 9B. So Monday, we are going to have a session on that. Physical session, we are starting with physical sessions on Monday at Ahmedabad branch of ICI. The circular will be floated today. The next we have on 27th July, we are starting with IBC series. So those who want to have an idea about what is IBC, what is the emerging opportunities for chartered accountant in IBC, and those who are already in insolvency, we have planned a very beautiful 8 days IBC series starting from 27th July to 9th August. And yes, 24th, this Friday, this Saturday, we are having a mega mass distribution. So those who are still interested to volunteer the same can register. Then email regarding the same has already been floated. With this, I would now request CA Nisha Patel, the coordinator for today's session and the convener for the Women Empowerment Committee, to introduce the esteemed faculty for today, CA Arvind Godana ji. I think Nisha is stuck. Nisha, are you there? Yeah, she is stuck.
She's on mute. She has to do mute.
Yeah, Nisha.
Yes.
You are on mute. Nisha, you are on mute.
Yeah. Am I audible? Yeah.
Yes, perfect.
Thank you for giving me this am I audible?
What's cut over?
Nisha, your voice is breaking.
Nisha, you seems to be.
Fine. Let me take the privilege to introduce Arvind Godana ji. He is the senior partner at Godana and Godana. He is qualified as MCom, LLB, graduate CWA, FCS, ACIS from UK, and yes, he's an insolvency professional with an experience of total 36 years, out of which 14 years as company secretary in the companies in public sector, joint sector, and private sector. He was the chairman of Ahmedabad chapter of ICSI in the year 1999, and thereafter he became the chairman during the year 2006 of the WIRC of Company Secretaries of India. He is actively associated with various educational and social institutes. He is currently the director of Kanha Associates Private Limited, a company promoted by professionals to provide corporate and legal advices. His firm, Godana and Godana, has handled more than 800 crores hotel projects at Gandhinagar, wherein he is serving as the finance, legal, and contract management role, preparing various legal documents and agreements. He has handled a case of 200 crore debt and has acted as IRP, appointed by NCLT in more than 10 cases. He is also empaneled with various banks as RP. Along with ICI, he is a regular faculty at ICSI, law, AMA, government training institutes, and we are really privileged to have you with us, sir. Thank you for your prompt acceptance, and we are glad to have you at Ahmedabad branch. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
I would now request sir to take the session ahead.
At the outset, I thank you, Ahmedabad branch of WIRC of ICAI, to give me an opportunity to share my real or practical experience on the drafting of agreements, deed, will, etc. Friends, as a company secretary, it is our prime duty to learn the drafting. And I was fortunate that at the age of 24 or 25, I had an opportunity to draft various agreements of the project which was coming up, right from the acquisition of land to the putting the factory in the production. I had on hand independent exposure to drafting of various agreements. Now I have prepared some slides presentation. It's not a typical presentation of what we have while you young people give a lecture or presentation. I'll have just note down certain point which a young professional should remember, that when you draft an agreement, these are the very important aspects which you should remember and upgrade your skill. Nevertheless, you can't become an expert in drafting any agreement or anything unless you have a constant practice, experience, exposure, and at the end, perseverance. You should have that passion to draft an agreement, because whatever comes in our mind, you would like to put into agreement. And nowadays, these agreements, everything is very important because of the after globalization, there are lots of businesses which are being done between the two partners who may or may not be knowing to each other. And also, there are a lot of business agreements one has to execute during the course of your business as a professional. And corporates always see upon chartered accountant or company secretary in-house to see that important conditions, terms and conditions are incorporated in the agreement. Now, when you talk of agreement, first thing I would like to tell you that what is the word or source of the word agreement? From where we learn the word agreement, and how do you go ahead with that? So It is Indian Contract Act 1872. Friends, remember, this Indian Contract Act 1872, which was framed by the English, until we follow the same act across India. And this act, I always like this act because this act is so beautifully drafted. In all other act, you miss a link between the earlier provision and next provision. Or I would say there is no logical presentation of the various provisions, and in particular the Companies Act or Income Tax Act. There may be section 2, 2O, 201, 3D like that, and then you refer section 5, you refer section 18, and go so forth and so on. But Indian Contract Act is so beautifully drafted. Then when you take one definition, you find one word into that, and that is defined in the second definition. So here I am not going to teach you the Indian Contract Act, but the word agreement has emerged from the definition of proposal. Now what is proposal? I am not defining in the as per act, but I am just explaining you that when one person proposes to another person, either to do something or not to do something, is called proposal. So here, when one person propose means promise. Now, then what is promise? When proposal is accepted, it is called promise. Now, every promise is an agreement. So once is a proposal, if there is a promise, and every promise becomes agreement. Now, when you draft an agreement, you must see whether there is a proposal or not, whether it is accepted by or not, means whether there is a promise or not, and then whether that promise signifies or defines that yes, we have to enter into agreement, then we have to go to a word agreement. But again, here as a professor, you should see that what is agreement? That any agreement which is enforceable by law, any agreement which is enforceable under the law is contract. For example, in Gujarat, I can't enter into an agreement for purchase or sale of the wine because wine is not enforceable by law in Gujarat, it's banned. Likewise, so many agreements with the enemy country cannot be enforceable by law. Presently, we have enemy country like China, enemy country like Pakistan. So I can't enter into an agreement because it cannot be enforceable by law with the enemy country. So you should see that agreement when you draft is enforceable by law. Now, when you draft an agreement, mostly we make mistakes. Sorry. Most people will make mistake about stamp duty. That is why I have taken the first. Any agreement without stamp duty is not considered as an evidence in the court of law. So first, when you draft an agreement, you think the proper stamp duty. Presently, proper stamp duty is 300 rupees per agreement. It can be a non-judicial stamp paper. It can be a adhesive or anything. It should be a non-judicial stamp duty. So without stamp duty, or if your duty which is less than what is prescribed, then also that document may not be accepted as an evidence. So first you should see that the agreement is stamped. I find sometimes that the agreement is executed and stamped at a letter. This may again come into your way when you go to court of law to prove that the agreement was executed on the date which is specified in the agreement, because stamping is done at a later date. Again, please remember, in Gujarat, any stamp paper older than 90 days is not approved as an valid stamp paper. So you should see that when you come to draft an agreement, the stamp duty should not be older than 3 months of the date of execution. So that is the most important. Then you put a title. What is it? What exactly you want the agreement? A short title we call. Example, agreement for purchase of electronic item, agreement for construction of office. So some title you have to give, and that agreement has to be dated. So starting will be this agreement is executed on so and so date. So when you put a date, please remember, see that stamp duty and date is within 3 months. So this is the most important aspect of the agreement. Then there will be two parties or more than two parties. Generally, there are 3 or 4 parties. Sometimes it is 7 parties also. That depends. But then you have to give full description of each party. If it is a company, you would write down the company register of the Companies Act, Indian Companies Act 2013, give address of register office, and give short name, maybe hereafter called as client, hereinafter called as supplier, etc., etc. So you have to give full description. If it is an individual, you must not forget to mention the date of the person, because as you must have learned that the agreement with the minor is void or voidable. So anybody having age less than 18 cannot execute agreement. It will be void. So you have to have 2 or more parties. You give full description and age of that party. And please do not forget that this expression shall include, suppose a company, you will write, this expression shall include its administrator, receiver, liquidator, or assignees, like that. Otherwise, what will happen? That agreement which is executed by an individual will not be enforceable against the legal heirs if the word legal heir is not written. So that is what you should write in the agreement, that individual will include legal heirs, assignees, receiver, etc., etc. In case of company, director, receiver, liquidator, administrator, etc., etc. In case of partnership firm, partners, receiver, beneficiary, etc., etc. You must not forget to mention this word. Then, once you have drafted your stamp duty title and you have given the full description age of the person signing the agreement, you have to give recital. Recital means background. Why this agreement? So that when you read the correspondence and papers, you come to know that how this proposal was made, how this was accepted, what kind of communication exchanged. Here you give maximum detail as far as possible. For example, we write, whereas Mr. X has applied or has submitted a tender to construct a 4-story building at so-and-so place. And whereas Mr. Y has accepted his tender by email or letter dated so-and-so for construction of building as per the terms and conditions as set out in the offer letter and accepted by the Mr. So-and-so in their acceptance letter. So this recital you have to give. Sometimes we have big document to be attached with the agreement. So what we generally write, or what we should write, that this agreement shall also include the following documents. Example, tender submitted by Mr. X, request for proposal submitted by Mr. X, negotiation entered into between the parties, final financial offers submitted by Mr. X, etc., etc. And these are all documents will form part of this agreement. Unless you write this, anything mentioned prior to agreement and not included in the agreement or not mentioned in the agreement may or may not be applicable when the agreement is challenged. The other party may say, this is not in my scope of work. I entered into an agreement with chartered accountant, for example, for doing a TOC audit, and there may be a lot of exchange of letters. And if something is missing in the recital or hereinafter, the other party may or may not agree to obey by the correspondence of the earlier, because that may not form part of the agreement. So you must explain the recitals. It may not be so large, but it should not be so brief. So try to write as much as possible. We call it background. In legal language, we call it recital. You might have studied in your law graduate or you're doing chartered accountancy. Then, important aspect of the agreement is consideration. As you all have studied, any contract without consideration is void. If you enter into an agreement and do not write consideration, then it is void. Now, consideration can be either in Indian rupees, but that you have to write clearly, or it can be in dollar, that you have to write clearly. So, consideration, and here, please do not forget to write whether GST or other taxes are extra or within that. Then we come to terms and conditions. Here, as a professional, we have to only draft terms and conditions. Most of the terms and conditions you will find from the exchange of communications, tender conditions, offer we have sent, etc., etc. So generally, sometimes we send quotation, sometimes we send offer, sometimes we send tender, sometimes we send request for proposal, we call it RFP. Sometimes we call request for qualification, we call it RFQ. So you write down all these terms and conditions with detail in a legal language. Because earlier, your terms and conditions may or may not be in the legal form. Here you must write that in the legal form, so that there is a clarity on the terms and conditions. Nevertheless, though terms and conditions are mentioned here, if you mention about all these, that the documents of RFP, tender, etc. will form a contract, you can always read your terms and conditions with the document which are part of the contract. So this is must here again. So one of the most important clauses is arbitration clause of the agreement. Because if you do not have arbitration clause, what will happen? Party may go to court and file a civil suit to claim his money or to terminate the contract. Civil suit is one part. But one of the most serious things which I have seen while executing contract, where arbitration clause is missing, then in that case, party will go to court and get a stay, status quo. So your entire work thereafter will be held up. So arbitration clause, you must mention in the agreement, even if it's written in the RFP, RFQ, tender, etc. You repeat it here. And you must mention the arbitration will be as per the Indian Arbitration Act, 1996, Arbitration Conciliation Act, 1996, as amended from time to time. Again, in arbitration, we have two kinds of arbitration clause. One is there can be a single arbitrator. In a small amount of contract, you can have single arbitrator. In case of big contract or technical nature of contract, there can be 3 arbitrators. Single arbitrator can be appointed by mutual consent. And in case of 3 arbitrators, you have to provide that one arbitrator will be appointed by party A, second arbitrator will be appointed by party B, arbitrator A and arbitrator B, which are appointed by A and B, say call it C and D is appointed. Then C and D, both arbitrators, will appoint E, called a senior arbitrator. This third one will be senior of the A and B. We call it umpire. So he is the chairman of the arbitration court. He is the chairman, we call it chief justice or chairman of the arbitration court, and arbitrator will be appointed. As per the new amendment in arbitration, now prior to arbitration also, there will be conciliation. So you should make a clause that prior to arbitration, there will be conciliation between the two parties. So before going to any third one for arbitration, both the party can sit together and try to reconcile the issue. You can put some deadlines, say 30 days, 60 days. So if the issue is not reconciled by and between the two parties, within 30 days or 60 days, party can go to the arbitration under the arbitration clause. The benefit of arbitration clause I told you is straightway none of the party will go to arbitration. Here again, please do not forget to mention that during arbitration, none of the party will stop the work. In short, the work will continue even during arbitration. So the work is not hampered. In my life, I mean, last 10, 15 days, years of life, I have always insisted this clause. And as a result, you see, most of the government contract where I am involved are completed in time, though there is an arbitration. So arbitration chalta rahega. Financial implications it will be done. At least my work is completed. I am making payment to the contractor. Contractor is getting payment as per the non-disputed amount. Disputed amount will be set aside, and that will be settled by way of arbitration. So party will not go to court. Your work will be completed. There will not be any status quo. Court cannot grant status quo because there is an arbitration clause. Court cannot say you stop the work because that provision is already in arbitration clause. So this is another beauty of arbitration. In case of supply contract, particularly, also you must put this arbitration clause because party cannot stop supply. For example, in recent time, there is increase in the steel, cement, and other material price. There may be a provision for increase of the price in case of increase of the price of the goods. What will happen? Priority will supply to you the material. You pay as per the agreed price. Remaining price will be settled by way of arbitration. So you get your supply. He gets his money, whatever he is eligible to get. And remaining will be settled by way of arbitration. So arbitration clause. In arbitration act, there is a time limit, which I am not going into detail today, but arbitration is completed within the time limit. One more question may come. Pardon? Hello, there is one more condition. Suppose both the parties do not agree to arbitration or they do not appoint arbitrator. Suppose they do not appoint arbitrator. What will happen? There is a provision in the Arbitration Act itself that in that case you have to approach the High Court. The High Court will appoint arbitrator from the retired judge. Generally, they appoint High Court judge in case of a high value contract. Otherwise, civil judge in case of a low value contract. Depends on the contract. So if you do not appoint arbitrator or if none of the party or both the party do not agree to the arbitration, you approach the High Court and High Court will appoint the arbitrator. So this is another beauty of the agreement drafting, that you must draft arbitration clause properly. Similar important clause is force majeure clause. When you draft any agreement, please do not forget to put force majeure clause. As we all know, recent time, because of COVID-19, that kind of thing was not there in the force majeure clause. And lot of contract of high value, particularly between the private party and between the government, between the two nations, between the two suppliers, between two countries, were held up. And there was a problem of the foreign exchange payment, problem of the penalty, problem of the liquidated damages, problem of the termination of contract, because the other party is unable to supply because of there is no, courier available, delivery chain was held up, delivery chain was disrupted. Initially last year, delivery chain was stopped because of the lockdown. So Supreme Court has came out with the order that during this COVID arbitration, force majeure will apply and the COVID period will be considered as a force majeure. So if any party has failed to adhere to the contract during this period, which is defined for each state, the force measure is applicable. In either case, other than this COVID, force measure includes act of God, and this COVID was, by Supreme Court, was explained that this is also act of God. Similarly, there is a war, there is a violence in the factory, all such kind of thing, flood, earthquake, etc. can be explained in the force measure clause, and you have to draft it very carefully, depending upon the supplier or the contractor with whom you are dealing, to whom you are supplying. You must draft this clause properly. Otherwise, there may be a problem. Then another important clause is jurisdiction clause. Here, there are so many judgments on the jurisdiction clause. So if you don't draft this jurisdiction clause properly, this is going to be challenged. Or if you forget to mention jurisdiction clause, I would suggest, friend, even if you sign, don't sign an agreement, but even if you issue a work order, because so many things we purchase or sell through work order, even in work order, you must write subject to so and so jurisdiction, because that will protect you from unnecessary expenditure and harassment of filing case. For example, if you are supplying goods to the UP, Uttar Pradesh in some taluka level place, and if you do not mention the jurisdiction clause, that fellow will file a suit against you in the remote village, remote taluka level court of the UP. Then many times these small courts, they do not know the arbitration, etc. clause, and straightway they grant a stay, and you have to travel all the way to that city to get the stay vacated and fight out the case. So you should clearly draft the jurisdiction clause. As per the Contract Act and jurisdiction, let me explain you, the jurisdiction of contract is a place where the contract is executed. So initially, when I should tell you that this contract is executed on so and so date at Ahmedabad, or at Gandhinagar, or at Jamnagar, or at Mumbai, that you must mention. Then only in jurisdiction clause you can write down the jurisdiction of this matter will be subject to the competent court of the Ahmedabad or Gandhinagar or Jamnagar. So that should be very clearly mentioned. Here again, we have a problem of the transactions or agreement between the person of India and person outside India. In that case, if you do not mention jurisdiction clause properly, they may sue you in Australia, they may sue you in UK, and you know how much cost of the advocates and judiciary is there. And if no jurisdiction clause is there, the person sitting in Australia or UK, you are sitting in India, the case will go to Court of Hague, HEG Hague. So there is the international court for all dispute when there is a dispute about jurisdiction. So jurisdiction clause is very, very, very important. So far as contract is concerned, you must properly draft jurisdiction clause. Then comes to time period. If you do not mention any time period of this agreement, then what will happen? This agreement is open-ended, and you may be sued or you will have to sue somebody. So you must mention the time period of the agreement. This agreement is valid for 12 months, 3 months, 3 years, whatever it may be. And you must write, however, same can be extended for a further period with mutual consent, etc., etc. You put time period and also put provision for extension. Again, one more mistake we make in drafting agreement is we don't write address for notice. As I told you, when you write in the preamble, Mr. So XYZ Company Private Limited, having a registered office at so and so place. But you are dealing with the local person, maybe it's regional office or administrative office. So you should write the all notices and communication will be at the following address, so that you did not send all your notice and etc. communication to the registered office. Instead, you can send at their administrative office or factory or regional office or branch office, whatever it may be. That you have to write with email and phone number, so that any communication which is sent to the notice which is mentioned in the agreement is valid. Otherwise, what will happen? The letter will go to registry office. It will just be lying there, and the person signing will say, "I have not received anything," and the entire agreement will be in the dispute of non-receipt of notice. So you must write notice. Email communication also you should write there, and email communication is valid under the Information Technology Act, provided you write in the agreement. So you have to mention email address in the agreement. Otherwise, it may be challenged in the court. And I have seen this experience that we have never agreed to email, and this is not my email ID. This email was not received. This email was discontinued, etc., etc. So if your email communication address in your contract, then only, according to my view, the email communication will be valid. So email communication is must. One more important is liability clause. You should mention there are agreements where there is a penalty clause. But as per Supreme Court judgment, you cannot provide more than 10% as a penalty. There is a Supreme Court judgment settled all over India. In India, you cannot penalize more than 10%. For example, for delay in supply of goods, say by 1 week, you can impose penalty of 1%. You can't just keep it like this. Every week, 1%. If it doesn't supply for 100 weeks, 100% penalty is not there. The penalty can be, if it delays more than 1 week, penalty at the rate of 1% will be levied, subject to maximum of 10%. Even if you do not provide, you cannot impose penalty more than 10% as per Supreme Court judgment. So this is settled law under law of contract, because Supreme Court judgment is again a law, settled law. So that is the provision in the Act itself. Then comes liquidated damages and penalty. In the agreement, we always provide in case of defective work or delay in the work or non-supply, how much liquidated damage or penalty you will levy, that should be provided. So with liability clause and liquidated damages clause, as I explained, you should provide in the agreement, even if it is written, again I'm telling you, even if it is written in the RFP or tender, you please reproduce here in the legal language. This should be mentioned. In many contracts, we put performance guarantee clause. Suppose they do not perform the contract. For example, I have given a contract for supply of machinery. He doesn't supply at all. From where I will recover the loss which I am going to incur? There is a performance guarantee. It can be in the case, bank demand draft. It can be a performance bank guarantee. Nowadays, performance bank guarantee is very easy, wherein money of the supplier is not stuck up. Bank just charge 20%, 20-30% as a margin money, and they give rupees 100 or 1 crore as a guarantee. So that you should put a clause here in the agreement that party in performance of the guarantee will give 10% of the value of the contract as a performance bank guarantee, and that bank guarantee should be, according to me, irrevocable. So you should always provide irrevocable performance guarantee, maybe from the bank, or it should be 100% cash. So if supplier fails to supply the goods, you can always encase the bank guarantee and terminate the contract, because the 10% guarantee is a profit which the party is going to get. That is as per Supreme Court judgment. So you have to provide, you can provide the performance guarantee clause. Any other condition, you feel free, you can put, like sometime in the contract of architect, we write color combination. In case of architect, we write theme, what theme you need, it should become. Sometime in building contract, we have 2-year maintenance, 3-year maintenance, warranty, guarantee, etc. You provide, we can provide in the agreement that your supply will have warranty of 1 year, or guarantee of 3 years, or free replacement, etc., etc. You can provide here in the agreement. Once you have drafted this agreement with these important points, then last 4 or 5 lines you must have seen that it should be signed by authorized person only. So when you see the agreement, please ask for a authority of a person. If it is a company, you can ask for power of attorney or a board resolution authorizing Mr. So and so. For example, if Arvind Godana is authorized, I should produce a board resolution signed by company secretary of the company or MD. Then Mr. Arvind Godana is authorized. The board copy of certified board resolution enclosed. Put it along with the agreement. So that is authorized person signature. I mean, authorized authority is must. Otherwise, though in case of company there is a doctrine of indoor management, but it is very difficult to prove. And why to go into another litigation proving that whether he was authorized or not. So you should have authorized person with his stamp of the company and designation. So that you must put the name, address, and name and stamp of the company at the end who signs it, and there must be one witness of each party. Suppose there are 5 parties, there should be 5 witnesses. And I would suggest, then don't put witness from your company. You put some. I always insist witness should be of the other party. If I am signing document, my witness will be the person employee of the other company. And if he is signing, his witness will be person from my company. Or there is no relation between two, there may be third party. Here again, you have to take his address. And in case of big contract, we insist for his photograph and ID proof. So tomorrow, authorized person, photograph ID proof, witness photograph ID proof. So in the court of law, if it is challenged that his signature is, because many times signature of the witness is challenged, or witness may say, I have not signed this thing, etc. can be avoided. So we take photograph, ID proof, put it at the last page of the agreement and get it signed by the concerned person along with his stamp. And all these agreements not required to be registered. Agreements are not required to be registered, but we always advise that high value agreement should be notarized so that there is an evidence that this agreement is executed and notary will certify or sign this as an agreement, so that in the court of law it is very easy to prove it. And notary will see, also while notarizing will see the person signing, because they will sign in presence, witness that they will sign in presence, and he will also certify that these people have signed in my presence. So at the court of law, it is very easy to prove that this agreement was validly signed between the two parties. It is always advisable to amend the agreement, and there is a clause in the agreement. I will advise never to amend the agreement by exchange of letter. Sometime in agreement, advocate write that the agreement will be amended by way of exchange of letter and accepted by other party. But that is risky in case of high value contract. So it is advisable to execute an amended agreement every time if the agreement is amended. For example, recently I have seen the agreement of extension, but we have signed the extension of agreement, only one page, 300 rupees stamp paper. The agreement, original agreement dated so and so, which was signed by on so and so, is extended for a further period of one year, and both the party blah blah blah. So it is advisable to sign extended agreement, because again that is to be proved in the it is easy to prove, proved in the court of law, and party may not say that this agreement is not extended, this is expired, because it is not signed in the proper stamp and it is not signed by two parties. So in order to avoid all such kind of dispute at a later for a high value contract, I would suggest you that you please develop your skill to sign amended agreement as well. In contract or agreement, there are few risks. So, or I'll say key point which you should be careful. First is, please see risk involved. What risk you are taking? as a chartered accountant, you should say what is the financial risk if this agreement is terminated or not performed. You may say only you can penalize 10%. You may forfeit performance guarantee if it is given. But suppose in the present circumstances, prices has gone double, and if it doesn't supply, that risk is involved. That you should analyze and tell your promoter that this risk is involved in this agreement. Second important thing is, many times both the party are signing at different place. This is another risk, I'll tell you. Both the party will sign. Say if I am in Ahmedabad, I will sign in Ahmedabad. Other party is in Delhi, he will sign in Delhi. Or other party abroad, he will sign in US or UK. And that agreements are valid. It's not invalid. So here again, what you have to do? When I am signing in Ahmedabad, as on today, I will have to write down this agreement I have signed on so and so date, effective from so and so date. Then again, I have to write effective date. Effective date, say maybe 1st of May 2021. I am signing in, say, 20th April. And Mr. Y from UK is signing on 30th April. So date will be 1st May. You can't have preponed. You have to have post next date. After signing agreement only, agreement will come into effect. Again, I will explain you. Suppose I am signing agreement today, so 20th of July, and I send this agreement to UK. He will sign on the 28th of July. And in that case, I have to write down this agreement will be effective from the date on which last party signs this agreement, or 1st August 2021, whichever is later. So this is possible. But here, risk is of jurisdiction. Jurisdiction is here wherever you sign the agreement. So that party is signing agreement in UK, you are signing agreement in India. So in jurisdiction clause, you have to properly mention that though both the party will sign in different place, Mr. X will sign in Australia, Mr. Y will sign in India, the law of India, law of land of India, I mean Union of India will be applicable, and jurisdiction will be in the Ahmedabad or India only. This is what you have to mention. So there is another risk. You have to be careful. Stamp duty I explained you. If you are signing in Gujarat, okay. If you are signing in Maharashtra or other state, please verify how much stamp duty is applicable. You have to put maximum stamp, even if it is in Gujarat. And if it is signing abroad, please clarify there how and what stamp duty they have to affix. And such agreements are at abroad also are either notarized. In India, we call notary. There, it can be apportation. Apportation, I think many of you may not be knowing. I'll just explain you that if you are signing any agreement in abroad, you may go to your lawyer there and they will certify. Or sometimes some of the contract, Indian government insists, certain import contract, Indian government insists under the FEMA that this agreement should be apostillized. Apostillized means that person has to go to Indian MNC in USA, UK, and he should sign the agreement in presence of the Indian ambassador there. So that you have to be very careful while signing this agreement. If it is not apostillized, as per the FEMA, if the list of the goods you have to verify, then that agreement may not be at a later date considered as valid, because it is not apostillized, though it was required under the FEMA or under the Government of India import and export list that you have to verify. Then there must be one more important thing. If the agreement is terminated, there is a termination clause. If the agreement is terminated, mainly in case of software item, you know, in software item and supply item, the agreement is terminated, or some construction half-page agreement terminated. Then what? So you must make a provision. Then in case of termination, the other party will continue to construct or complete the construction or complete the supply or can shift over to other software. For example, I'll just give you a live example. The MCA, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, was having an agreement for portal management with earlier with TCS, now with Infosys. So entire data was with TCS, and there was a termination clause. The agreement was terminated or completed after 5 years. then entire data, there was a mention that entire data will be transferred to another service provider. So that's this you have to be very careful when you also enter into a contract for supply of various software in a big company, then high value contract. When you enter into contract for supply for services, there must be a way forward in the agreement itself. That in case of termination, I have a power, and you should give me your all data, papers, etc. to me upon termination, and I will be allowed to use that for the furtherance of that project or services. Again, you have to mention the IPR rights of the whatever communication correspondence or report generated should also be with the payee. If I am paying for my product, IPR rights should be with me. However, the big companies like TCS, etc., when they supply software to you, they do not give you IPR rights, or they will not give you a code. That is a different thing because they have a monopoly. But small software or small development of your design, logo, etc., in the contract, you should mention that IPR right will be with me. So this is what very important. And there must be a contract, performance clause, specific performance, that even if contract is terminated, certain specific item he has to supply, because there may be some monopoly item which you can't buy from elsewhere. So there should be a specific performance clause in the arbitration, in the agreement, that he has to comply with that. And if he does not supply, you can always sue him for not supplying and for loss of profit, loss of damage, etc., irrespective of the liquidation clause, liquidator's clause, or penalty clause. So certain monopoly item, like example, if you buy a Tata car, and Tata is not supplying, or your car is defective, you can't buy another car because then you bought a Tata car, and there is a specific performance. So what will happen? Tata will also withdraw this car and supply you another car. You must have read such kind of thing across the world. Because of this clause, they have to supply another car because I want branded car or branded thing. Similarly, there may be some software, say tele software, for example, our chartered accountant. On tele software, there is a problem. So that he has to supply the latest version, and that is a specific performance. He can't say I will not supply because price has gone up, or for any other reason. If you are paid or if you are paying. So there cannot be a termination or liquidated damages when you make a specific performance. But that has to be justified logically and legally. Why this is specific performance? Now, this is what I explained you about the important points and skills of drafting agreement and vetting of the agreement. If agreement comes to you like this, and you don't only vet, please read clause by clause of draft of any agreement. What we do not read 30-page agreement, and then you are taking very big risk the company. One comma, full stop, or small mention somewhere. I'll just give you one example. In a foreign supply contract, if you have entered into contract for rupee, say 1 crore rupees, and in agreement, that fellow will write equivalent to $68, rupees so and so. And in a later date, suppose dollar becomes 74 today, then he will tell him, you pay me at 74. You can't say I will pay you 1 crore price. No. He will say you convert the dollar which I mentioned at 68 rupees, dollar, such as $68,000. You give me $68,000 and you have to buy at 74 rupees. There is huge loss to you. So these are the clause, particularly in the foreign contract. Please read clause by clause. And such clause, as a chartered accountant or as a company secretary, we must read, because the person who is entering into contract may not understand intricacy of this. And at the end of the day, we may enter into paying more than 10 or 20% of the original contract value. Second thing I told you, please see jurisdiction clause. If it is agreement with foreign national, always insist for passport as ID proof. And if he's executing contract in India, he can do it. But if it's a passport, have a witness properly, get it notarized here. And if he's staying in a hotel, take a hotel bill or some proof that he was in India, but because he may not part with the visa. Generally, they don't part with the foreign national will not part with the visa because it contains a lot of traveling. So you take some proof that he was in India. Sometimes we take an affidavit on that day in presence of notary. So he was here and he has signed this agreement. Because the agreement signing may or may not prove that he was in India. So sometimes we take ticket. But ticket may be anywhere in India. He was in Ahmedabad on that day. What is the proof? So that is to be, please be sure that when you sign an agreement with foreign national, you sure that he is in India. Or if you go abroad, please make sure that you were abroad and he was there on that day. So that is very important. So we always insist for a passport for both the party. If I go to it abroad, I also put my passport with there, and he will put his presence in the notary or advocate, whatever there. Certain agreements, when you see friend, is one-sided and a monopoly type. You have no choice. If you see, example, we see the mobile connection. How many of you read the agreement while taking Jio or Airtel mobile or Jio connects at home? Sometimes loan agreement, we just sign blindly. But I would suggest some of the clauses like termination clause, penalty clause, or such similar clause which has financial impact. If you negotiate, sometimes they agree. They don't know, I will not agree with this. That they agree. In case of housing contract, there is two clues in housing contract, housing loan. One is prepayment. Suppose I have taken 20 lakh loan and I have 1 lakh rupees with me. That housing agreement, some of the bank, they will just one-sided agreement. You also don't see, and they will not allow you to make prepayment. आप prepayment नहीं कर सकते, आपके agreement में नहीं है. That you can negotiate. No, I want to make prepayment. Sometimes foreclosure. Foreclosure means suppose I have taken 20 lakh rupees or 30 lakh rupees loan. After 3 years, I want to make entire payment of loan. If that provision is not there in the loan agreement, they will not foreclose your loan. Or if you are so powerful, they may foreclose your loan, but they will insist for 1% or 2% additional interest. So these are the one-sided or monopoly type of contract when you enter into such kind of contract. In case of builder, when they take loan, construction builder, construction building, they insist escrow account, entire money will go to escrow account. They will not allow you to foreclose the contract, nor prepayment. You have money lying in escrow account. They're only at the most, they will allow you to make fixed deposit. Your contractor, I mean your promoter or contractor or builder is in need of money, but that money you cannot withdraw because it is in escrow account. So these are the tips which I wanted to give you about the one-sided or monopoly contract, which I am giving you out of my experience. So these are the important aspects of the agreement. Should we go ahead like this or we have interaction also? Hello? Okay. Yeah. Other thing, yeah. So I will continue. If there is a question, I think we can take later. Now there is another form of agreement or contract, like undertaking. Now undertaking is altogether a different part. It is not a contract, but it is a legal document. Undertaking is given by one person to other person to do something or not to do something. In most of the loan, the bank will ask for undertaking that you will not transfer your shares to any other party without the approval of the bank. So this is a This is given in the on the stamp paper of 300 rupees, but it is given in the form of letter. So it is only signed by the person giving undertaking, addressed to the person to whom undertaking is given. But if you are taking undertaking, please write at the end that your undertaking is accepted and then give copy. Otherwise, this undertaking will be challenged. Similarly, there is a bond. Bond is again a binding that if I fail to do something, I will pay this much, this much. Same thing is indemnity. Like we give indemnity bond. There is a guarantee. Again, I give you guarantee for the performance of product or for a performance of contract. The guarantee is given particularly on the supply of product, and that guarantee is also a contract. And though any agreement without contract is void, the contract of guarantee is without consideration, but is a valid contract under the Contract Act, because this is the exemption to the Original Contract Act 1872. So any contract of guarantee, undertaking or bond did not have a consideration, but they are valid contract. Then gift deed. Again in gift, there is no consideration. I give a gift to my son against the love and affection. What is consideration is only love and affection. I give money, he doesn't give me anything. So gift deed is also part of contract, but it is not giving consideration, though it is valid contract. Similarly, agency contract. Agency contract also is a contract given by one party to other party. I give an agency to sell my TV to Ami Electricals. Now there is no consideration given by me to Ami Electricals. Similarly, there is a lease contract. As you all know, there is a lease of the property by one party to other party, or lease of the car. Generally, we find in the car and the property. So the lease agreement also doesn't have consideration. Hire purchase has. Lease only there is a lease rent. Though there is a consideration, but it's a contract called lease agreement. One more important agreement is leave-in license agreement, which is important. So I said, let me share with you. Leave-in license agreement, in which generally we give our house or office on the leave-in license. This is also again the part of contract. So if you give a right to live, stay as a license, license is a contract. But in license, there is no consideration. I give license to XYZ to sell some product on the railway station. I give license to sell my product in my office. So these are all licenses. So this is nowadays very famous in case of the contract for allowing office or house on rent. Because of the problems in the Rent Act, and our present Rent Act makes the tenant as a permanent tenant, you can't remove him from your house. This concept of leave-in license has grown. Here again, please remember mention, leave-in license beyond 11-month contract is not valid. That is why we always execute leave-in license. So we have leave-in license for 11 months. Then again, we terminate the leave-in license for 1 day. Then again, we enter into leave-in license for another 11 months. Many people are doing leave-in license also as an extension of leave-in license. Please do not do. Leave-in license extended further beyond 1 year may establish right of tenant, and beyond some period, he may not vacate the premises. That is why you should always enter into a license, leave-in license for 11 months. You may provide, however, this leave-in license can be extended for a further period of 11 months by executing another level license. So you may provide for 3 years, 6 years, but every year you execute new level license contract. Only in case of bank, sometimes they don't accept this kind of provision. But banks and private institutions, they don't generally claim the property as a permanent tenant, and they are a business house. So sometimes court also do not support them. So there is a separate issue altogether. But second thing, you always provide increase of the rent every year, or if it is not mentioned at the time of renewal or extension, this lease agreement can be extended for a further period of 11 months with increase in the rent by mutual agreement should be provided in the agreement. So this is all about the importance of the agreements and contract. And now I will turn to succession planning and will. This is, friend, very, very important from the point of view of the chartered accountant and as a company secretary also. Because nowadays, the price of the property and business have gone up. If you say in Ahmedabad or in Gujarat, even farmers, family members are fighting for the property because of lack of succession planning. So you as a chartered accountant, depending upon the size of the client whom you are servicing, if it is corporates, if it is industry, partnership, or having a lot of property, lot of other incomes, etc., should insist your client to have a will. Why will? Because it is a succession planning of the family. Friends, post-COVID, this is very, very, very important. And every week, let me say you, every week, I draft at least one will of a medium-sized industry. Because of COVID, there is a lot of problem. You will say, what is the necessity of will? If I don't have will, what will happen? Friends, if it is not a will, if your person died without will, it is called intestate. It is called intestate. So means he has died without will. I will come to that later. What will happen if you do not have a will? Now, what will be in the will? Will, there is one executor, means a person who is signing will. Another one called administrator or administration. The person who will implement or execute the will after that. And there are two persons in the will. One, there should be two witnesses. If I am making my will, I am executor. I will write down that after my death, who will administer this will. I have to write down his name, address, etc. in the will. And it should be witnessed by two people. Because in the will, if it is challenged at the end of the day after death, you have to prove that person was a living person. वो जिंदा था, that you have to prove. So for that, generally we insist the doctor to sign that I was witness and he is the person was live. Second person will be generally we to take an advocate or some other person or his friend. Suppose I am drafting a will, I will call my will to be witnessed by one of my friend and doctor. Or if it is no, I don't want my friend and I have a doctor, then I will call an advocate who will witness it. So that tomorrow if it is challenged, then advocates can prove it properly. Then on that day he has signed. Because there is no formal form of will. You can write in your hand also. Will you can write in your own hand. Simple plain paper. There is no form. There is no legal paper required. Nothing. There is no stamp required. Nothing. So you have to mention your name, address, your age, will administer it, and name of the witness and signature. That's all. That is the will. Now, suppose you want to, there is a question. Suppose you want to change the will later, because you can have more than one will. Every time you can go and change it. then that will is called codicil. Amended will, you have not to write the second will, third will. You write codicil. That my original will is amended as under. My original will is to be read as under. Now, will means a declaration, legal declaration about the property upon a death. That is a codicil. Now, suppose there is no will. Suppose there is a will. What will happen? If it is a will, you have not to prove anywhere. I'll come to that benefit. If it is not a will, you have to go to a competent court and go a probate. Probate means the list of the family members of the deceased. We call it legal heirs. And they go as per Indian Succession Act. They will not go one step here or one step there. In will, when you draft, you may or may not give your property to X or Y. So, why will? I told you why will. You explain your client the clarity on distribution of assets. You can distribute your assets as per your wish, your willingness, your will. I have 3 sons. I'll give X property to Y, Z property is this and this. So you can distribute your property as per your willingness during your life, so that they will get their property after your death. So you have liberty to share your assets as per your will. You may not give your property to any of your sons. Suppose your son is not, according to you, is not the fit and proper person. You may not give your share of property to him because of will. If you have not drafted a will, well, when you go for probate, they will not agree to this. They will go and decide the legal heirs as per the Indian Succession Act only. One more important problem is will is there is unregistered partnership. If you have a partnership and it is unregistered, you are a partner. There are 4 partners. So one partner dies. How will you and whom you will enter into a partnership upon death of the will be legal heir? How will you reorganize or revise your partnership? Where that money will go? That will be a problem. So if you are in unregistered partnership, you must execute a will, and in partnership, it mentions legal heir. So under the will, other partner also will not have problem. Your legal heir will automatically become partner in that partnership. That partner also cannot say no. So there is another benefit of drafting a will. Arrangement between children. Some husband and wife, in one of the cases I know, husband and wife both died during accident. And children were below 18. What to do? If you have a will, you can always appoint an administrator. An administrator will be acting as a trustee, or if he is not willing to act as a trustee, if he is not willing to act as a trustee, you can always appoint trustee with the help of the competent court. In case of divorce, if you not have a will prior to divorce, the divorced wife or husband, as the case may be, will claim the share after the death, because as per Indian Succession Act, she will become eligible party. So, what is the character of the will? Legal characters. It is a legal document, no, not to be stamped. It will come into effect immediately after death. And you must try that will should be revocable, so that you can always revoke a will and execute another will if you don't want to amend the will. So in will, you should write that this will is revocable, or if it is not, you don't want to have revocable, don't write. You write this will is irrevocable, but can be modified by way of codicil. So that is possible. So as I explained you, if there is no will, what will happen? Particularly, I will go to the Indian Succession Act. Hindu Act provides that if there is no will, the competent court will decide the legal heir. In Gujarat, we call it Pedi Namu. It starts from Talati Mandri, where your property is situated. If it is situated more than 3-4 places, all this Talati will prepare a Pedinama. He will submit to the competent collector who has the power, because this is being done by the revenue authority. The Talati, Mamlatdar, additional collector, and collector. They will decide who is the legal heir. And Indian succession is very clear. There are two parts of the legal heir who will become what partner. First is class. There is a two. There are 4 classes. But I will tell you there are 2 classes. One is class 1, first priority. If they are not alive, then there is a class 2, the second priority. I have given example shortly because it's very complicated, but to understand you in easy manner, class 1 immediately will be a mother. If mother is not there, father. Widow. If widow is not there, your brother or sister, son or daughter, parents of the dead parents, widow and dead son, sibling, widow and grandson, widow brothers, children of grandson, great-grandchildren, children, etc. See that this list is very, very complicated. Distribution of assets without will of huge property is very, very, very difficult. I would call it indirectly impossible if you have huge property. Even a farmer having 10 or 20 bigha of land in Ahmedabad, where land price is 1 bigha, costing 20 crore rupees. A farmer whose name is entered into a property card or into Sadbar has died without will. All these family members who died will fight for the property. Sometimes when the property is sold, auntie, or fua, or fai, damad, etc., there is a claim that my father has died, my father-in-law has died without a will, so I am eligible for share. And there are n number of cases. N number means not thousand, lakhs of cases are going on in the court of law across the India, and I handle so many such cases. Almost every day, 1 or 2 person comes to me for consulting, particularly in the land matter, because I also handle some of the land matters. As a contract, because of will in this thing, I also handle this, and they consult me. And now how to go about. If you buy a land, then also be careful. Please see Sadbar and Choha. This is not a subject today. If you buy a land, please be careful that there is a will. If will was not there, there is a Petinamu. If Petinamu is there, please verify that. And if the notice were served, those who have not been given a share, they have waived off their right. Recent Supreme Court judgment, just 5 days back, it is that even if you have waived your right, your children can claim. Because you waived right and you died. And then the person who was owing the property dies. So automatically class 1 and class 2, he becomes owner. And he said, no, I don't want to waive right. These are all complications comes because you have no will. So under Hindu law, you must plan for the succession. And succession plan is must. This is what I am telling you for an individual with huge property or a small and medium-sized corporate. Succession planning through will is must. So I have given you how it will be distributed. There's a photograph from which you will understand how it will go. I'm not going into detail because time may not permit. So this is how 1% share will go to 3%, 3% will again go to 6%, 6% will go to again 12%. And if there is no son or daughter, that will be tough. So this is how Taluka Mamlatdar will distribute the percentage. Second line will get the 3 people here, they will get 33%. But again, there are 2 children below them, they will get 18%. Again, there are 2 children, they will get 99%. Each one will get share upon your death. Important thing, please, another right. that if you inherited property, for example, I have my property inherited from my grandfather without a will, which we have. Property inherited from grandfather is always without will in India, which we know most of the cases. If I have inherited my property from my grandfather, even if I make will, again I'm repeating, if I have inherited my property from my grandfather without making a will and I have become partner because of that petty nama, that property will automatically go to my children at the rate as has been prescribed. There, I cannot distribute that property directly through will unless I get the right waived from my children. So these kind of cases are coming up that this land was belonging to my grandfather. And now my grandfather means my grandfather's the property I got it from my grandfather. My son's claim, no, this was from your grandfather, I am eligible. You can't make will excluding me. These are the cases going on in the court. So that is why you must make will. If you are above 60, please, particularly in the COVID situation, please try to make will. Will is 3 or 5 line will is sufficient. Even if you describe property is well and good. If you don't describe property in detail, if you don't have time, make it properly. Will sometime on the deathbed also we prepare a will and go and get it signed by him. When doctor is there, he will sign. He is in the hospital. This was signed. 5 or 6 line handwritten possible. I write, doctor will write the will, and the patient will sign. Is also proved that yes, this was signed by him. So this is how it is necessary. So I have given you an example. How shares will be got distributed. So will I explain you? There will be a name of the beneficiary, children, executor, no requirement of term. I explained you all these things. It should be signed by the major. Now, another important thing is, if woman is also earning and wife, husband also is earning, you both can make a separate will. If there is a joint property, then also you have to make a will. You can have a joint will, or you can have a separate will that my joint part of joint property is will go to him. Your wife can make a will that your part is her part of joint property also will go to so XYZ. Deaf, dumb, blind also can make will. There is a rule for that. Joint property I explained you, that also can be, they can make a will. There's one more succession planning, trust act. Wills are always challenged that this was not signed, this was signed through coercion, and there are no many other issues. Particularly big corporate, as you know, we know the Birla family will was challenged. And Mr. Lodha said it is in my favor. There are 4 or 5 wills and they were challenged. So sometimes we advise that you make a succession planning through trust. If it is a big corporate and if it is huge property or huge shares like Ambani, Adani, etc., they are planning, making succession planning through trust. I don't say the planning through trust also is a perfect, because property is property. There are always disputes and there are always issues there. So here you can make a trust where you can make a trustee, beneficiary, and trust property. You can describe the trust property. You appoint a trustee. So what will happen during your life? The trust property will be transferred. It is a separate fund. So entire my property will go to a trust. I will make a trust whereby I will transfer my property to a trust and it will be transferred to a trust. And all the owner in the trust which I will write, they will become beneficiaries. That I have set up a trust and I have so many shares, I have so many property. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, my children will become beneficiaries. So even if after my death, the other people become trustee and the property will be safe. Particularly apart from property, particularly the shares and immovable properties, it is better to have a succession planning through trust. As you know, there was a quarrel between Ambani family, there was a quarrel between Bajaj family. Singhania had a lot of trouble because he transferred all this property, etc., etc. So we advise a big house or big people having huge shares of let's 2 crore, 5 crore, 10 crore worth of shares, people having investment. We advise them to make a trust so that entire shares will be transferred to trust. In trust dividend, whatever dividend they get, that money will go to the beneficiary. Here, there are two trusts, private trust and public trust. Friend, don't go for public trust, but then you declare all your property to public, because public trust is available to public at large, and you have to file your account, etc. before the commissioner, which you know. So we advise them that you should go for a private trust. It's a private trust. The trust can be revocable and it can be irrevocable, depending upon your client requirement. You can have a revocable trust, you can be irrevocable trust. You can make this trust as irrevocable for the time being, but during your lifetime before death, you can revoke the trust and have another trust. That depends. So if you feel that right now let us make a trust, and at a later, if you find Mr. X is not in your control, you revoke the trust and change it, the clauses. There are some important points to be discussed, considered, but you can revoke the trust and another trust you can do. So in case of private, succession planning, we advise private trust. Now the concept, I have exceeded my time, but now concept has come for corporates. Some of the corporates like HDFC, etc. They are also acting as a trustee. You can only take help, involve them, associate them to make succession planning to act as a trustee. Then they take care of the property. You can also take individual as a trustee, but corporate has a professional management and financial acumen. So they manage your entire asset, movable assets properly. Fixed deposit, shares, bond, Kisan Vikas Patra, etc., etc. There are some corporates that have come, professional corporates have come in the market, and they advise you for the wealth management, and there are called financial planners. Many of the chartered accountants also are doing financial planning, and I would advise them to venture into this if you are not doing, and advise your small clients, growing clients, to make will or to make a planning through succession planning. We advise the client who are going for IPO always. We advise our client who are going for IPO, because 10 rupees share is going to be listed at say 70 rupees or 800 rupees. And if you have not made succession planning, you are a 3 partner or 3 director or 3 brother in a family. If there is a quarrel, such kind of companies, I have seen 2-3 companies in Ahmedabad, because the partner or director were fighting, the company has gone to a liquidation. And if this kind of trust succession planning is there, they all will work together because they know the shares are in the trust and they are not the owner. One more benefit of trust is bankruptcy remote structure. Friends, please remember, in case of bankruptcy, if everything is in trust, you are safe. So I just give you a trick that such kind of client, if you feel they are going into loss and they are going to be bankrupt next 1 or 2 years, transfer all these assets into a trust and make a trust, private trust, so that it is immune from the bankruptcy for the time being, unless they have given a guarantee and put up these assets under that. Always take expert advice for the management, as I told you. It avoids the family dispute because it is in trust. Obtaining probate, as I told you, that even if it is will, you have to register, ultimately execute it, produce before the, presently in Gujarat, we have Mamlatdar, and get it stamped and execute, final, get it declared there is a final will. Or if it is not probate, it is again you have to obtain the probate. It is very difficult and cumbersome process. Here it is not necessary because the person died, trustee goes, trustee, another trustee will be appointed, and that provision is there in the trust deed. If it is efficient succession planning, best example is of Tata Trust. Tata, all shares of all the companies are held by the Tata Sons, and which is a trust. So See, there is now Tata Sons and Tata Trust who have control on the whole company, and this is a very beautiful planning Tata has given. You can also in trust deed, you can also make a provision for charity. I have drafted one trust wherein that uncle wanted that I want to donate 10% of my income to a Gau Seva or some charity, and that was provided in the trust deed. And every year they give 10% of their income towards charity. So that provision you can do it here. In case of the will or without will, you may or may not. I mean, children may or may not use your property or income for charity. This is you can do it. Throughout the life, even if you are live, your trust is an operation. So during your life also you see how it is working. Whereas in the will, you do not know how it is effective after the death. So this is another benefit. I think with this, though I had to go with some speed. It's a huge subject with huge experience. I can go on speaking, but let us have a end to it. Thank you, Ahmedabad chapter, for again giving me this opportunity. I conclude this presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, sir. Myself, Bhumika Virani, and on behalf of Ahmedabad branch of ICAI, we grateful to you, sir, for having you in this session. And आपने बहुत अच्छे से इस सेशन को ड्राफ्टिंग के बारे में, ड्राफ्टिंग ऑफ एग्रीमेंट, जिसमें यू कंसिडर दी हाउ टू मेक अ विल, हाउ टू मेक अ ट्रस्ट, फॉर्म्स ऑफ एग्रीमेंट and all the things आपने बहुत अच्छे से सब लोगों को समझाया. It's our privilege to have you in this session. And thanks to all participants, and definitely this session will help you to drafting a better agreement and improve your drafting skill. So thank you so much again, sir, for joining this session. And thank you so much to all participants from Ahmedabad branch of ICAI. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.